Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Uh, it has been a very challenging week here in Beijing with the lockdowns and the virtual lockdowns and the testing every day. The testing, sorry, every day is quite interesting, environment we are in now. The world is going a little bit crazy between COVID-19, January 6th public hearings, and the war in Ukraine. I mean, wow. The impact of the Ukrainian grains and the Russian grains on the world famine. It's quite amazing stories that if they are linked together, we can see that the patterns are not very positive when it comes to how state act and how these under international law, what can we do, and basically when you look at a state as an actor, it is a stakeholder. It is the main actor of international law. We understand after we went through last time Westphalia, we understood that states are the main actors when it comes to international relations. So it is very important to understand what is a state and how does it function, and also how can we define a state, knowing that it is a construct. It's man-made institution that we give it a legitimacy to act on our behalf. It's quite amazing how far, as a species, we are very complex when it comes to deciding on our institution and deciding on our social structures. It's quite amazing how far we came. And so let's try to understand the concept of state itself. So we do have to understand that states are very important because it's a very important element in our international relations, because international law was created by the states. Uh, well, it was created by us, me and you, as a human being, but we gave that authority to the states to talk on our behalf. You can see it whenever you have a spokesman standing in the Oval Office in Washington, or a spokesman talking in Beijing on behalf of the state of China. So we created the state, but also we talk on its behalf. And when it comes to international law, it's not law applies to me and you within our country, but international law applies to states. So you see, we have given a state a very important role in our societies and the way going forward. Um, so basically, we would like to say that a state is said to be active subjects of international law. However, again, it's a very subjective element. It's a little bit contradictory sometimes because which we call chaos. Chaos in once you go beyond the state, there is no other law actually than international law. International law itself is new. We look back at international law. We look back after World War II. So all these elements are very new to us. That's maybe one reason why we have all this conflict today, including the war in Ukraine. And how are we going to answer if one of our actors, a state actor, decide to not respect the international law that was put into place through the United Nations after World War II? How are we going to do that? But anyway, that's not the objective of our interaction today. Today, I would like to talk about how do you define a state? What is a state itself? Well, basically, there are three elements that will always appear in front of you when it comes to talking about states. Number one is territory. Number two is population. Number three is an effective government, not government, an effective government. We'll talk about that later. It's a very important word that we are using here that will have an impact on some states that are not fully considered as fully functional states. Example, Palestine, or as I live in China, Taiwan also is a province, is not a state. Hong Kong is an administrative area that has some autonomy. So it's very important here. I'm a native from Morocco. Basically we have the same issue with the Sahara, and we would like to have them under the Moroccan authority, basically sovereign right of Morocco. So these are elements that we would like to discuss today about territory, population, and effective government. You have these three elements, you have a state. That's actually very simple at this level. So when we look at the three elements here, that is a territory, basically a population and an effective government, you have to go back to the Montevideo, sorry, Convention about the right and duties of state. The Montevideo Convention concluded during the Seventh International Conference of American States in 1933, which is quite interesting. It was a little bit in between World War One and World War Two, and before the United Nations came to play a bigger role in our international affairs. So the convention itself is said to have codified the criteria for statehood, and it has been since then a declarative theory of statehood. So the Montevideo Convention, of course, add another element plus the three we have discussed before, is the capacity of that state to enter into international relations. Um, Example, Taiwan can't, Palestine can't. So that's an issue that is very important to understand. So yes, so as you can see, finally, there are four elements that we are looking for here when it comes to, are we in front of a state? So this is the question you ask ourselves. Is it a state? So if you answer these four questions, elements, if you have them in front of you, then we talk. So territory is quite simple. You need a border. Again, this is a construct. It's quite unbelievable that we everything is something we imagine, everything we dream of. This is concept that started a long time ago. Once we start settling around our agricultural revolution phase, when we started building settlements and taking care of the land, we also built walls and created that kind of territories that are engulfed within a small village or a kingdom or whatever you call it. So we are talking about borders, right? We are talking about a land attached to the crust of this planet. It's quite interesting, right? So we go back to, as a species, we are part of a planet and we live on a soil, right? So basically, the land itself is very important to define a state. Zambia, Kenya, United States, or whatever is your belonging to that space, that land space that you have to identify. Today, there are many issues around the globe when it comes to border demarcations, and like now with the issue with the Donbas area, right, and Luhansk, this is a very challenging, when it comes to the concept of territory itself. Um, so it must be natural. So we have to talk about a natural element criteria here that is cannot be artificial. We're not talking about an artificial land, right? So we have to be clear. This has to be natural territory here. And there should be no disputed elements around this territory. There should be no disputed border. Americans are very, very lucky when it comes to this. Europeans, most of them have managed to move beyond this. However, when it comes to African nations, South Asian nations, there are issues because the way they were colonized, it was not very clear. The divisions was made between the colonial forces in the 1500 towards the 1800, right? So we have a lot of issues there. Once the colonial powers left these areas, the poor demarcations, poor understanding of the concept of state, because itself the concept of state was new to most all these areas where it was a tribal based connection. It was also kingdom based systems. You will be you will be surprised how many kingdoms are in Africa actually till today. Just go to Nigeria or South Africa and you will see that. But also in South Asia, so it was an issue actually still till today. There is poor demarcation, and there is a conflict that started after, of course, World War II, that left many issues in South Asia itself, especially with China bordering many nations like India itself, right, or issues with Japan, issues with other nations here, which is normal because those lands were belonging to China for a certain time, during a certain time, but the status quo has changed during World War One and Two. They moved from one entity to another one, and it's a big issue. So as you can see, territory itself, while it does define a state, it also can create problems for the state. So think about it, okay? Also, when we talk about territory, the size does not matter. It's going to be like Monaco. You look at two states, okay, Russia and Monaco. There you are. I mean, the states their size is different, but still they are state, okay? When we talk also about territory, we have also to look at um, the airspace, the sea space, right? 12 nautical miles or 200 miles. So we got the natural border around you if you are a sea-based state, which is 12 nautical miles. Then you have beyond the 12 nautical miles is about your ability to use these resources that they can go up to 200 miles. And then you got today what we call aerial identification zones, right? Defense zones, which can be, it's up to your technology. It's also up to your neighbors. So there are issues about the sea-based territorial limits, and of course you have the airspace. So also you have to go up. So you see, we have kind of three dimensions here: the land itself, the water or whatever sea if you are surrounded with, but also your airspace. Just ask airline companies, and they will tell you we have to pay every time we cross somebody's airspace, because that's you are using somebody's airspace. So as you can see, those are elements you would like to think about, right? So anyhow, that is one part that is very important to understand about how territory plays a role in defining am I in front of a state or not, right? So you need a border, you need demarcation, you need to have that piece of land that allows you to say, okay, this is my state border. Number two is population, right? You need population. Doesn't have to be a big population or a small population. Monaco is a good example. You need a population, all right? We're not talking about nature. We're not talking about other animals. People. People matter when it comes to states. So you need to have people, population that live on a permanent basis on that territory. This is very important, okay? Also, when it comes to people living in a state, it doesn't matter if the population has the nationality of the state or nationalities of over other states, okay? Um, who grant nationality? This is the concept that you have to understand. Who grants nationality? It's the state. That's quite amazing. They can take your nationality anytime, you know that. So they are the one who are going to give you a nationality, since the state itself, and also that as I'm foreign living in China, it grants me the resident permit to reside in the state of China. So this is also something you want to think about. Then the third element, which is very crucial after one and two, is you need a government that is able to govern. So you need authorities that they are respected, that they are put in place, and they are able not only to govern the territory to make sure that the institutions, the social, the political, the security institutions that we have created can function. Being able to collect taxes, example, being able to police the society, that's number one. But also, you have to be able to answer your international obligations. Okay, being able to secure a peaceful environment between you and other states, being able to engage in trade, being able to respect the United Nations Charter. So, and these authorities, the concept is they have to be independent from any outside interference. This is very important also. You cannot be a puppet government. This is not acceptable. So, and you have to be put by the people of your country. This is also very, very important. Though there are limits on how far other international state actors can interfere into your internal decisions or who really put you there. So this is something that's you have to think about carefully. Other states do not have a green light to just decide for other countries what kind of government they should have, of what kind of direction they should have into the way they police matters. So this is very important also. Okay. So basically, a state has the right to choose whatever political system they want. It can be a republic, it can be a federal, it can be a confederation, it can be a centralized state, it can be a monarchy, sorry. It can be whatever system. It can be a military-based state, it can be a civilian-based state. Again, it is according to international law, according to our understanding of how we govern ourselves at a global level. This is an internal matter. Of course, there can be some interferences. We see that it happens, especially if some countries feel like they need to intervene to safeguard the international order. Because there is a notion of we need to safeguard a common sense, right, on the way we do things. We should not go too far. Otherwise, we will undermine even the concept that we just talked about. So basically, we should not interfere, as I said, in domestic affairs. This is something you have to understand. International actors, state actors cannot interfere in domestic affairs. So it's very, very difficult situation here for our international engagement. Sometimes it's complicated, sometimes it doesn't make sense, but that's the way it is, because it does, by doing so, it does actually protect yourself also from being subjugated to other opinions or other ways of governing or policing. So it's like a double coin, a two-side right coin element here, right? It's a sword with two sides. We know that, right? So it's in a way it does limit your interference in others' domestic affairs, and sometimes you would like to, because you can see maybe they are engaging on an unfair practice for their population, but at the same time it does protect you from them coming to you. So we have to be very careful why we agreed that we should not interfere on other people um, internal affairs. So this is also very important. So yes, so these are the three elements that we saw here. But again, why these three elements are important, there is another fourth element, as we discussed, is your ability actually to do international, engage internationally, and have international diplomatic activities with other states. And a good example I want to give it is Taiwan in this case, which is even America does not recognize Taiwan as a state, even though they are engaging with them at a certain level, diplomatic level, but actually they don't recognize them. They are considered as part of China. There is only one China. Um, it's a bit ambiguous. It's a bit. Um, it's a very different situation here, anyway. So yes, so the being able to engage on in international affairs is a very also important element of being a state. Okay. Then again, state can disappear. We saw Yugoslavia, we saw West Germany. Uh, they disappear. They can disappear. They can disappear by treaty. They can disappear by ineffective governance. They can also disappear by international engagement. They can actually. There is a tipping point where if you miss some of these elements, if you lack some of these elements, you might actually disappear. So as you can see, the concept of state is quite interesting, isn't it? This is not the way we imagine that actually our global governance is organized in a way that, first of all, is a construct. We create the concept of state and we give it characteristics, 3+1, and we are also trying to give it power and trying to create an environment to protect what we created, right? So it's a bit interesting to see the concept of state from this angle. I hope it can give you an idea about now your state where you live. You might want to try to find out what kind of system is that. Is it a federation, confederation, a state, a republic? Because it will have an impact on the way the state function and look at their citizens and how it does interact with its citizens, right? So states are powerful institutions that we created. So it is very important to understand how they function. All right. I hope you had a chance to learn something new today, and thank you for your engagement. And take care and keep in touch. Bye bye.